Hi, my name is Amber Jasmin Mancebo. My preferred pronouns are she, her, and hers. I identify as an AfroLatina. My family is from Barahona on the southern coast of the Dominican Republic. I speak English and Spanish. This is what looking bilingual means to me.
Describe to me your journey with the term Afro-Latino.
So, growing up, I've never heard of this term ever in my entire life until I got to college in 2013. And I remember I went to a very culturally diverse university that year. I'm not going to say where it is because they don't get free promo, child. They ain't paying me.
I love that. Totally keeping that in.
And I saw so many culturally diverse people, and I was learning so much with Black Lives Matter started coming into play a lot with Freddie Gray, Mike Brown, and Alton Sterling, and all these different people. The conversation about the texture of hair came up. And I remember I had gotten to my freshman dorm room the first day I was there, and I had chopped off all my chemically straightened hair, and my curly hair was all that was left. I literally just took and I just started chopping it off. And I was watching videos and really trying to learn so much more about what this meant because I grew up in this household where just accepting that side of you was not, it just wasn't acceptable. Like, oh, tú tienes lo moño, el pelo malo, tú tienes el pelo malo, which meant that it would like curl up or kink up instead of being bone straight. And I was just like, what does this mean that I am deciding to grow out my hair the way it naturally comes out of my head? I'm not chemically straightening it. I'm not applying anything. I'm not manipulating it in any way.
You had talked about having a lot of learning to do in regards to your race and ethnicity. Can you repeat what those are in case anyone missed it in the intro, your identities, and what brought that on and how this impacted your conversations with your father?
My race is Black or African American, but my ethnicity is Hispanic or Latino, Latinx. This specifically came up when I came home for my freshman year of college. And again, that was kind of when the whole Black Lives Matter conversation started popping up a lot, like on Twitter and stuff like that. I remember it was specifically about Mike Brown. And that was when all the riots and all the fires and stuff were going on in Ferguson. And my dad and I, we were sitting on the couch watching CNN every night, like we always do. And I was so angry. I was so angry and I was like in tears and I was just going off. And besides the fact that it was just plain out wrong that Black people are getting shot at plain sight just for being Black, um, he looked at me and he was just like, well, why else are you so passionate about this? And I looked at my father, my dark skinned Dominican father, and I told him, I was just like, Dad, you do know that you're a Black man in America, right? You have your Afrocentric side of you that you neglected your whole life. Because I remember growing up, he would talk about something because he's a very passionate dude, and he would just be like, I'm not a hypocrite. Yo no soy hipócrita. Yo nada más sé que yo soy negro y feo. All I know is that I'm dark skinned and I'm ugly because of it, basically. So from that night on, we kind of kept having the conversation and we kept talking about it and we kept like trying to educate ourselves because I for sure don't know everything. And he never really opened up that can of worms to ever have that conversation with anyone. So having those conversations with him and really like trying to help him understand as I was trying to understand what it meant, like that was a pivotal moment in our relationship, really. And a pivotal moment for me, just again, learning what it means to be Afro-Latina.
I remember you telling me how close you are to both your parents. And so you feel that that really just pushed your relationship forward and you were able to grow together. It just improved it.
Yeah, for sure. And just having conversations with my parents about like their grandparents and stuff like that. Like I didn't know that my father's grandfather was full Jamaican. I was just like,
Oh, wow.
where'd that come from? In all my 26 years of living, you never told me that. Like, what's good? And he's just like, oh, I don't know. It just wasn't important. I'm just like, how is that not important? You know? So like just learning these things, it excites me as much as it kind of makes me sad sometimes, you know, because it's just like, well, why don't you openly share these things? Like I feel like there's this underlying shame
Mhm.
that has to be talked about a lot more often. And I try to bring it up as much as possible.
I think that's wonderful, and I applaud you for that because it's not easy, and I know that there's a lot of people that struggle with that, and I applaud your father for breaking this generational trauma in a sense. That's what it is. It's what he's been taught, and what he's seen in his environment. When he was back in the DR, probably even here. So I applaud that because it's not often that you hear a story like yours, a conversation with a parent or a family member like that going so well and that person really thinking about it. So it really says a lot about your relationship, but also about his willingness to grow and continue to learn. What has your relationship been with the Spanish language prior to now and up until now?
So growing up, of course, both languages were spoken in my household because my parents immigrated here in the 80s. English is my first language to me because that's what I spoke in school. And then I would come home and my parents would speak Spanish and English interchangeably. And my grandma mostly just spoke Spanish. So I would say words, and sometimes I still do. I mumble certain words because I just don't. I just say it wrong sometimes. And I'll just be like, Daddy, ¿cómo se dice, da 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 da. And he'll tell me. And what I love is that we both learn together.
Yeah.
Like my parents and we both learn together, where I'm more articulate in English and they're more articulate in Spanish. I think learning your family's native language is a beautiful thing. But at the same time, don't excommunicate people just because they don't speak Spanish.
Yes.
I can still be Hispanic and not speak Spanish. Maybe there are other parts of my culture that I am, educated about. I just don't speak the native language. Right. Why not be patient and understanding? There are certain words that I just can't say in English, like acetaminophen.
Oh,
I can't say. Yeah, I can't say words like that without saying it in Spanish.
That's a difficult word to say in Spanish.
Yeah, acetaminophen. In English, how do you say acetaminophen in English?
Is that Tylenol?
I think that is Tylenol. But acetaminophen in English, isn't it acetaminophen?
Acetaminophen? Wait, say that. Take me through that word really slowly.
Acetaminophen.
Oh, acetaminophen.
Yeah. I can't say that in English.
What's your relationship with the Dominican Republic? How has it changed over the years?
I went to the DR for the first time when I was 13 or 14 years old. I was so excited to be there. First of all, when that airport door opens, the heat that smacks you in the face, child, I'm just like, oh my. And my Americanized little self, I'm just like, dude, it's hot out here. My dad's like, yeah, welcome to where you're really from. I love the atmosphere and how carefree I feel when I'm there. And I just I'm typically not like a huge nature person, but I just want to go into my grandmother's backyard and sit under the the limoncillo tree and just, eat mangoes and just, there's that whole relaxing feel where it's just like, like I love being there. My grandmother, right? I remember I was leaving the house, minding my business. I'm just like, bendición, mama, I'll see you later. And then she's like, okay. She has a chicken tied up by its leg in the corner. I was just like, mama, what are you doing with that? She's just like, oh, well, it's a pet. Now I came back, that chicken was seasoned in a pot. I was just like, how did you did that yourself? She's like, yeah, I just, took the neck and I just plucked the feathers out, chopped it up, and boom. My grandma does stuff like that because she a gangster, so, whatever. But yeah.
I love that. Actually, my grandfather was Puerto Rican, but my grandfather would refuse to eat chicken because his family would cut the chicken's heads off first. And apparently, chickens continue to run around even if their head just got cut off.
Mm-hmm.
And so it traumatized him and he refused to eat chicken for the rest of his life. That's a skill set that I will never have.
I could never do it. So.
What do you hope for the future?
Over the years, learning way more about my heritage, where I'm from, what it means to be AfroLatina and stuff like that, I noticed that I'm really ignorant about a lot of the political struggles that people go through down there and how the government can be very corrupt and all the injustice that's going on in that country. I noticed that I need to take more of an initiative to become a lot more aware, just like I try to follow certain news outlets about what's going on in America because I live here. I also have family members that I love and care for dearly who live down there, and they're suffering through certain things that a lot of the time I didn't even take the time to learn about.
Have there been moments that somebody, either from the US or the DR, didn't quite grasp the concept of you and your intersectionality?
Yes, in two different ways. People would be like, oh, I didn't know you were Hispanic. I thought you were just a Black girl. And I'm just like, what does just a Black girl mean? Like, it's like this minuscule, very like generic thing almost. Like, or, you're really pretty for a Black girl.
Oh,
it's like, so Black girls aren't pretty? People who have, African descent aren't pretty? What are you trying to say here? And I would try to, probe them that way. And they would just be like, oh no, I didn't mean it like that. And I'm just like, yeah, but you did though. It just wasn't cool. But they would be like, oh, I didn't know that, you had any Hispanic origin until you started speaking Spanish because you don't have an accent. And I'm just like, okay, there are people who speak Spanish who don't have an accent. When I would go to DR, I did have a relative that told me, I was telling her these different stories, and then she told me, well, you're not Dominican. And I just looked at her and I was just like, well, what do you mean? She's just like, you're only Dominican because you were conceived by two Dominican parents. You're American. I don't understand. How does that not make me Dominican?
Yeah.
Almost as if that whole Mean Girls, you can't sit with us type of thing.
Isn't it incredible that you were telling her a very vulnerable experience? You were recounting to her how Americans were not recognizing all that you are. Instead of taking that opportunity as presumably an adult and as presumably a family member who's like, you know what, actually, and push it away too. That's some gall. That's some gall. And that says a lot about her. That's unfortunate, but it says a lot about her.
Yeah, it was very ostracizing.
Yeah.
I kind of just walked away because that was many, many years ago where I wouldn't have even been able to like articulate a rebuttal. Like I wouldn't have even been able to respond. I was just kind of like, all right, I'm taking my Hugo Chinola and I'm going over here, girl, bye. Like I'm not, I'm not playing with you right now. I hate that because it makes people have to choose a side.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have to do that. I can be aware of every side of me. For anybody who is identifying as Afro-Latino, Afro-Latina, Afro-Latinx, it's okay for you to grace yourself. You don't have to be able to articulate every single point. You don't have to know all the answers. Give yourself the grace to be able to learn what you need to learn. And it's a continual learning process. Like life is a continual learning process. I'm still learning everything. I don't have all the answers, but I accept that. I accept that with this part of me that I love so much. And I just continue to grow, and I encourage you to do the same thing.